The subject line read, "Effective immediately. Transition notice." Ethan Cole blinked once, twice, then leaned back in his chair, the glow of his dual monitors reflected in his reading glasses. The office was buzzing with Monday static, keyboard clacks, quiet laughter from marketing, a printer coughing somewhere down the hall. And yet, in that moment, everything else faded. He opened the email. Dear Mr. Cole, in alignment with recent strategic initiatives, your position has been eliminated. Please clear your workspace by 5 p.m. today. A member of HR will escort you shortly. Operations team, Stratus Tech. No name, no signature, just cold text on white, 17 years, vanished in 3 lines. A quiet laugh escaped his lips. Not amused, not bitter, just hollow. The knock came 30 seconds later. Vanessa from HR, with her careful smile and clipboard, stood in the doorway like a nurse about to deliver bad news with pre-written empathy. Behind her, Daniel Harper loomed, arms crossed in his sleek, tailored suit, the same one he'd worn to last quarter's all-hands where Ethan's name had been left off the recognition slide, for the 3rd time. "Hi, Ethan," Vanessa began softly, like she was helping him process a death. "Do you have a minute to chat privately?" Ethan closed his laptop slowly. "I believe I just read everything you were about to say." Daniel shifted his weight. "It's a restructuring, Ethan. Nothing personal." "That's the most personal kind of lie," Ethan replied, standing. There was no scene, no yelling. He walked past Daniel with a nod and headed toward his desk, his corner, the one without a view but with years of history, old cables taped under the surface, a cracked mug from his daughter's school fundraiser, a cactus he forgot to water for 3 years and still somehow lived. He began packing without ceremony. The younger employees nearby, most of them recent hires who still needed him to reset their passwords, stared awkwardly, then quickly looked back at their screens, except for one, Stephen Park. "Mr. Cole," the junior analyst said, voice trembling. Ethan gave him a small, steady smile. "No need, you've got work to do." He reached for his external drive, one of the older models he always kept plugged in, just in case. It was gone, swapped out. A new, company-issued one in its place. He felt the heat behind his ears rise. "I'll need to return this," he said to Vanessa, holding up the drive. "We've already decommissioned your credentials," she replied smoothly. "It will handle data migration." Of course they would. By 4:45 p.m., Ethan was in the parking garage, staring at the 12-story headquarters he'd basically helped wire from the ground up. He sat in his car, hands on the wheel, but didn't turn the key. Not yet. They thought he was done. That night at home, Andrea didn't ask many questions. 17 years of marriage had taught her the language of silence. She handed him a beer, sat beside him on the porch swing, and waited. "It wasn't about performance," he said finally. She nodded. "It never is." He took a sip. Daniel brought in someone. Jason Quinn, consultant. Been hovering for months. Poked into the systems I built without knowing what he was looking at. Andrea tilted her head. "So why now?" "Because I noticed too much." She was quiet, but her hand found his. "Then they're not ready for what happens next." The next morning, Ethan opened his personal laptop. No login firewall, no network monitoring, no policy constraints. Just him, and years of habits built on precision. He opened a spreadsheet, old but familiar. It cataloged every system he'd touched, every tool he'd customized, every user-level request that once crossed his desk. It was a map of their digital skeleton, and now a roadmap for leverage. He began checking timestamps. 6 months ago, first admin-level credential shift. 4 months ago, firewall rule updated, redirecting logs away from the central monitoring system. 3 months ago, finance system remote access open to a new user string, J. Quinn staff. He frowned. At 11:12 a.m., he received a LinkedIn message from Rachel, his daughter. "Heard what happened. Do you need help?" Or, "Are you already planning something?" He replied, "Just fixing what's broken." Later that afternoon, he drove to a coffee shop he used to frequent before Stratus Tech got fancy, with on-site espresso machines and cold brew taps. He took a seat in the corner and began searching public vendor records. Crownbite LLC showed up in recent expense reports he'd glanced at before his permissions were revoked. A small consulting firm listed as a vendor since early last year. Quarterly invoices. 20K, 30K, even 50K at one point. He dug deeper. Business address, a P.O. box in Kansas, phone number, disconnected, registered agent, Nolan Mercer, Brian Mercer's cousin. His heart didn't race. It didn't need to. This wasn't adrenaline. It was calibration. The company had replaced him, but they'd overlooked something fatal. He hadn't just built the system. He was the system. And every back door they forgot he knew was still wide open. That evening, Stephen called. "They already replaced your name on the org chart," he said nervously. "Jason's listed as interim director of systems." "I see," Ethan said calmly. "Watch everything, but don't speak. Not yet." Silence. Then Stephen asked, "Mr. Cole, what are you going to do?" Ethan looked out the window. The last rays of daylight hit the edges of his porch like golden signal flares. "Patch the vulnerability," he said. "If you've ever been silently replaced after years of loyalty, type 1. Ethan's phone buzzed at 6:47 a.m. He reached over, still half asleep, expecting a message from Andrea or maybe his daughter Rachel checking in. Instead, it was from Stephen Park, the junior analyst he once mentored, the only one left who seemed to remember what Ethan had built. "Jason's presenting your old automation protocol to the board this morning, as his work. The entire Q2 cost-saving strategy. They're calling it the Quinn Framework." Ethan sat upright. The early sun bled through the blinds, catching dust in the air. His mouth went dry. That framework had taken him over 2 years to develop, built to streamline data reconciliation between procurement and IT security logs. It saved Stratus Tech over $500,000 in its first 6 months. And now someone else was claiming it. Jason Quinn. He opened his laptop, still had access to the local prototype, metadata intact. Author, E. Cole. Last modified, 3 months ago, just before they began phasing him out. It wasn't enough to fire him. They were rewriting the record, erasing him. By 9 a.m., Ethan sat at a quiet table in the back of a co-op cafe near downtown. No one there knew him. No one would glance at his screen. His fingers moved deliberately, pulling up archived logs from his home backup system. Years ago, he'd designed a redundant logging feature for development environments, a paranoid failsafe in case any dev environment went rogue. It had done more than save one crashed server. It had saved everything. He found the log entries from 3 weeks ago. Jason's terminal ID, time-stamped sessions, cut-pasted blocks of Ethan's original code recompiled under a different header. No notes, no version changes, just raw theft. He smiled faintly. They didn't just underestimate him. They didn't understand the system at all. At noon, Ethan opened a new email draft. To Daniel.Harper-Stratus-Tech. Com subject. Financial irregularities. Urgent review. Needed Daniel. I'm sure you're busy, but I came across something I thought you should see. Recent expense authorizations referencing Crownbite LLC don't match internal service reports. Amounts are climbing. Some approvals don't align with normal procurement protocol. Possibly nothing, but worth reviewing before next board cycle. Regards, Ethan Cole. He left out the part about Brian Mercer's cousin, left out the fake invoices, the inflated charges, the backdoor Quinn used to bypass validation. Let them sweat. The response came faster than he expected. 12:26 p.m. Missed call from Daniel. 12:28 p.m. Missed call from Vanessa, HR. 12:31 p.m. Email from Jason Quinn. Mr. Cole, we are aware of the communication you sent earlier. I would urge you to avoid violating any post-employment confidentiality obligations. There are legal consequences for improperly using or distributing internal data. Regards, Jason Quinn. Ethan snorted. Jason was bluffing. He hadn't signed a post-separation agreement, no NDA, no exit interview. They'd assumed he'd walk away quietly. They assumed wrong. That evening, Andrea found him in the garage, sitting cross-legged with 2 old hard drives and a stack of thumb drives. "You planning to launch something?" she asked. He looked up. "Something like that?" She crossed her arms, watching. "Are you sure you want to keep going?" "Yes." "Not for revenge?" He paused. "No. For prevention. I know what they're trying to bury. If I walk away now, they win. They use my work, bury my name, and keep skimming money while everyone applauds." She nodded, then walked over and handed him a sandwich. "Then make it hurt." That night, he combed through firewall logs, user access records, and old HR performance reviews he had archived out of habit. Each file told a story. Jason had been granted elevated clearance 3 weeks before Ethan's termination. Daniel approved budget increases tied to consultant reallocation the month Crownbite began billing. Brian Mercer had quietly shifted $80,000 across 4 internal project budgets to disguise a vendor overcharge. Ethan flagged and cross-referenced everything. At midnight, he uploaded the first encrypted packet to a private cloud account tied to his legal advisor. A second copy went to an offline drive, now locked inside a safe deposit box. By morning, the air had changed. Stephen messaged again. "Jason's panicking. Closed-door meetings all day. HR is trying to update your personnel record to show NDA signed. Total BS. Legal sent us a team-wide memo about not discussing vendors with former employees. Something's coming." Ethan replied with just 5 words. "Don't get involved. Just watch." At 3:13 p.m., a number Ethan hadn't used in years lit up his landline. "Ethan, it's Brian Mercer." No formalities. Just calm, practiced cadence. "We should talk. This feels like a misunderstanding." "Is that what we're calling it?" "Look, things move fast in transitional periods. I think there's a way forward here. Severance enhancement, references, maybe even a private retainer for legacy systems consulting." "No," Ethan said. "I'm busy tomorrow." "You don't want to escalate this." "I think the board will want to understand why Crownbite LLC is registered to your cousin, or why Jason Quinn is presenting stolen architecture as his own." Silence. Then, softer. "You're making a mistake." "I know. The mistake was trusting you." Click. 10 minutes later, Vanessa emailed again. The subject line, "Updated severance package, confidential attached, a 6-page agreement, twice the original payout, NDA included, gag clauses, threats dressed as incentives." Ethan didn't even open the PDF. He moved it to a new folder, Leverage. If you've ever watched someone take credit for your hard work, type 2. At exactly 8 a.m., Ethan's scheduled email detonated like a digital grenade. Each member of the Stratustech board received a message from a seemingly internal account, complete with the company's header, familiar formatting, and a subject line that read, "Before you approve Q2 bonuses, please review." Attached was a 14-page report, line-by-line breakdowns of inflated invoices, vendor registration documents linking Crownbite LLC to Brian Mercer's cousin, firewall access logs showing Jason Quinn's elevated credentials before he was officially onboarded, and a folder of recovered source code files, all authored by Ethan Cole, with metadata intact, all now in use under Jason Quinn's name. No embellishment, no emotion. Just facts. Ethan sat on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching morning joggers pass by, the sky clear and sharp like freshly drawn plans. Andrea opened the screen door behind him. "Did you do it?" she asked. He didn't answer. The first phone call came at 8:17 a.m., unknown number. Then another and another. He didn't answer any of them. By 9:32 a.m., Stephen messaged in all caps, "Police are here. Mercer and Harper in conference rooms. Jason looks like he's about to throw up. What did you do?" Ethan smiled faintly and typed one sentence. "I just ran a protocol." At 10:05 a.m., his cell rang again. This time he answered. The voice on the other end was calm, female, formal. "Mr. Cole, this is Patricia Graves from Stratus Tech Legal. We need to speak immediately." "I'm available by phone," he said, taking another sip of coffee. "This really requires an in-person discussion." "No, it doesn't," he said simply. "Everything I know is in the report. Everything I have is backed up in 3 locations, and if anything happens to me or my family, it goes to the SEC, the IRS, and 2 media outlets with embedded timestamps." A long silence. Then, "The board is taking this extremely seriously. Several executives have been placed on administrative leave. We would appreciate your continued cooperation." "I've cooperated fully," Ethan replied. "That part is done." Later that day, Ethan drove 20 miles outside Columbus and parked at a quiet diner. Old place, vinyl booths, slow service, perfect for being invisible. By 1:30 p.m., the first news article broke on a local business site. Stratus Tech executives under internal investigation for financial irregularities. Sources cite multiple suspensions, emergency board sessions, and outside auditors. No names, yet. But the comments section already hinted at it. Knew something shady was happening when they cut IT last quarter. Harper always looked like he was hiding something. Can't wait till names drop. Ethan leaned back in the booth, sipping his lukewarm coffee. They weren't just exposed. They were on fire. At 2:02 p.m., his phone buzzed. Robert Chang. "Jake," the board member said, calling him by his real first name for the first time in years. "It's a bloodbath." Ethan said nothing. Brian confessed. Trying to cut a deal. Blames Daniel, says he was pressured. Daniel's denying everything. Jason's claiming ignorance, that he was just a consultant brought in to help modernize systems. And the board? Not buying it. All 3 suspended. Forensic accountants come in Monday. Initial estimates say $4.5 million gone. Maybe more. "I was close," Ethan murmured. Robert exhaled. "The board wants to speak with you about coming back. Not just your old role. We're talking Chief Information Security Officer. Reporting directly to us." Ethan didn't answer right away. "I'll think about it," he finally said. That evening, he sat with Andrea on the porch again. She had her feet tucked under her, glass of wine in hand. "So, it's done?" she asked. "Not yet. But they're gone." "For now," Ethan replied. "But systems are built to forget. If I don't stay in the room, someone else takes advantage again." She studied him. "Do you even want to go back?" "That's the part I'm still working on." They sat in silence, the air heavy with unresolved endings. Later that night, Ethan logged into LinkedIn for the first time in months. He didn't change his profile, didn't update his title, just posted one sentence. "Never burn bridges. Just let them collapse under the weight of their own corruption." Within minutes, messages began pouring in. "You're a legend. We all saw how they treated you. You just showed the right way to fight back. Thank you for not staying quiet." The next morning, Stratus Tech's boardroom filled with tension. 10 members, a table of polished mahogany, folders marked "confidential" at every seat. Ethan entered wearing a suit he hadn't touched in 4 years. The security guard downstairs had nearly dropped his badge printer when he recognized him. "Mr. Cole, welcome back," he said, standing straighter. Now, Ethan stood at the head of the table. The interim CEO, a former COO who once ignored Ethan's emails, looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Cole, she began. "Thank you for coming. The situation you've brought to light is unprecedented. The forensic audit suggests $5.2 million in diverted funds over 3 years." Ethan remained silent. "The board has unanimously voted to offer you an executive role. Chief Information Security Officer. Full privileges. You would report directly to the board." He placed a folder on the table. "Inside, you'll find my conditions," he said. "Non-negotiable." The CEO opened it. Her brows lifted. "Full audit authority across all departments?" she asked. "Yes." "Veto power on financial tech contracts?" "Yes." She glanced at Robert, who gave a single nod. "This is unconventional," she murmured. "So was embezzling millions," Ethan replied. "That happened because no one was watching. I'm here to make sure someone always is." He stood. "You have until noon. I have other offers. If you've ever wanted to speak up but were told to stay quiet, type 3. Ethan's inbox pinged at 11:47 a.m. Subject, Re. Executive offer. Final terms accepted attached. Signed approval from Stratus Tech's board. His conditions, each one bold and untouched, stamped and logged. Audit authority, veto power, full access, reporting line, directly to board. He closed the lid of his laptop without a word. Andrea looked up from the kitchen island. "So?" "They folded," he said simply. "Every line." She raised an eyebrow. "Even the part about choosing your own team?" "Especially that part." He grabbed his jacket and walked to the door. "Where are you going?" she asked. Ethan paused. "To rebuild what they tried to erase." The security guard stood straighter this time, printing the new badge. "Welcome back, Mr. Cole," he said with genuine respect. "You're on the exec floor now." The elevator doors closed slowly behind Ethan. For 17 years, he'd never once set foot above the 7th floor. The top 3 had always been reserved for people with polished shoes and perfectly unreadable smiles. Now he was one of them. But he didn't intend to blend in. His new office had a corner view, glass panes stretching across the Columbus skyline. The desk was immaculate, untouched. A new nameplate gleamed in brushed steel. Ethan Cole, Chief Information Security Officer. He set down his laptop, but before booting it, pulled a worn mug from his bag. The same one his daughter Rachel had made for him in 6th grade pottery class. A chipped handle, a faded heart on the side. He placed it carefully next to the company-issued espresso machine and smiled. Now, it felt real. Stephen knocked on the open door minutes later, a little stunned. "I thought you were kidding," the young analyst said. "You're really in charge now." "No," Ethan said. "I'm responsible now." "Big difference." Stephen stepped in, holding a printed security report. "They're asking who you want running ops under you." Ethan gestured toward the empty chair across from him. "That seat's yours, Stephen, if you want it." His eyes widened. "Seriously? You're sharp. You know the code. You question the data. All I ask is one thing. Always ask why, even when people don't want you to." Stephen nodded slowly. "I won't let you down." "You will," Ethan said. "We all do eventually, but you'll learn faster than they expect you to." By Friday, the ripples had become waves. Brian Mercer pled guilty. In exchange for full cooperation and financial restitution, he avoided federal prison, but still faced hefty penalties and permanent ban from holding CFO positions. Daniel Harper was fighting charges, his defense team blaming everything on consultant misdirection and vendor confusion. Jason Quinn had fled to Brazil. A week later, he was arrested on an expired visa and began the slow process of extradition. The money, mostly recovered. Enough that Stratus Tech avoided investor panic. The board spun the narrative as a transformative shakeup led by internal integrity measures. Ethan didn't care about the headlines. He cared about the systems, so he tore them down and rebuilt them, one protocol at a time. One day, as he walked through the open-floor IT bullpen, conversations dimmed, but not from fear, from respect. Ashley, one of the younger employees who once undermined his changes to impress Jason, now stood at the center console reworking outdated firewall configurations. He stopped. "That looks new." She turned. "Yeah, I found 3 redundant endpoints that were still logging vendor traffic. Cleaned them. Also wrote an alert script." He studied her. "Jason told you to push my scripts through without proper testing, didn't he?" She looked away. "Yeah, he said it was just bureaucracy." Ethan nodded. "Then prove he was wrong. Keep doing what you're doing." Her voice cracked. "Thank you for not firing me." He shrugged. "I've been underestimated before. I don't plan on repeating the mistake on either side." That night, Rachel called. "So, Chief," she teased, "you enjoying the view from Olympus?" He chuckled. "Hardly. I'm waist-deep in backlogs." "I heard through the grapevine you turned down a consulting offer from Northbridge. 7 figures. They wanted silence, not insight." Rachel paused. "You sure you're not still doing this for revenge?" "No," he said quietly. "I've already had that. This is just cleanup." She exhaled slowly. "I'm proud of you. I really am. You used to say I let people walk over me." "I was wrong," she admitted. "Turns out you just waited until the right moment to remove the floor." By the end of the quarter, Ethan implemented a mandatory 2 eyes protocol. No transaction or tech decision could proceed without 2 independent approvals. He rewrote the whistleblower pipeline to include encrypted anonymous reports with blockchain verification of timestamps. For the first time in Stratus Tech's history, even the board couldn't delete a digital trail. On a crisp October morning, Robert Chang invited Ethan to coffee. "The board approved your security budget," he said, setting down his cup. "Unanimous vote." Ethan nodded. "Thank you." "Never thought I'd see this day," Robert mused. "You were always the guy in the server room no one noticed." Ethan smiled. "That was the plan." Robert tilted his head. "You ever think about leaving it all behind? Writing a book? Consulting?" Ethan looked out the window. "Maybe. But for now, I'd rather keep the lights on here. Quietly." As Ethan walked back to HQ, Andrea met him outside. "You look tired," she said, slipping her hand into his. "I am. But I'm good." They walked together, past the building he once considered a cage. Now it was something else. Not home, but proof that redemption didn't need applause, just action. At his desk, Ethan opened his inbox, another LinkedIn message, from an employee in a different department. "I read your report. No one's ever made me feel like truth still matters in tech. Thank you." He closed the message and opened a new file titled Legacy Protocols. Phase 2. The systems were secure. Now it was time to make sure the people were too. If you've ever rebuilt from the ruins they left behind, type 4.